From an attendance perspective, I see Jim Bell, Amy Griffin Carroll, Paul Foley, Penny Rasher, Bill Walbert. I don't see Mike Morrow, Michael Chen, or Paul Foley yet. And as far as non-voting members, Stuart, thank you. John and Andrew for the police station. Tiger, Joe, all right. Joe's got it all, as the secretary, I'm sure. You guys have a chance to check the minutes?
Yes.
Yep.
I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Joe, are there any comments from,
No public comments.
thank you, sir. We go, Brian is next on the agenda, if we don't mind going to, Brian's just called in. Good morning, Brian. You had your cup of coffee?
I have, thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, anxious to give you an update on what we've been up to since we've last met. The most of the progress has been through meetings. And we have had a series of meetings with the town and PD. And we started off with having a permitting meeting with land use officials at Town Hall to talk about the permitting process. And the permitting, in addition to the special permit, we talked about demolition permits for what is going to be taken down. We talked about building permits, which this project will require 3 building permits. So it's not just one. They want to break the project into 3. So we took the information, and I think what was most valuable is how we could incorporate it into the schedule.
Brian,
And
what are the 3?
we have to do it for the building. We have to do it for the small outbuilding that we're doing in the back, but we're also having to take out a separate building permit for the retaining wall because it's an engineered retaining wall between the back parking lot and the lower parking lot.
Okay.
Brian, can you remind me what the small building in the back is? I mean, that's really small, right?
It's a 20 by 20 storage building. It's just used for storage for police department storage that they don't want in the building.
And why do they want 3 permits?
That's the way the building department looks at it. It's 3 separate structures.
I don't think it's a big deal. It's easy enough to do. Same amount of work, pretty much.
Yep, we just have to factor it into the schedule, and the demolition permit is to take off what we're taking off in the back. And that has a 90-day waiting period. So they encouraged us to do that sooner than later. So I think that's been plugged in through the project manager as being done as soon as you get a construction manager on board, that they could start the process with a demolition permit and at least get that on file to start the 90-day period that has to lapse before they can act.
If there's any delay on getting that done through the CM, I don't know why we couldn't get the owner's rep for somebody to file it. Not that complicated.
The startup.
I think the
No,
schedule
I didn't know. No,
still works with the
they haven't started
CM on
yet.
board.
Paul, you need to mute, or somebody needs to mute.
Tiger.
Oh, Tiger.
Tiger did. Yeah.
Brian, why do we need the 90-day waiting period?
That's a town statute.
Is that because it's in an old building, even though we're only pulling off the new part, or what's the 90 days?
It's any demolition to give an opportunity for the public to state any objections or to show any historic interest in the demolition.
It's any building built before 1955. You have a 90-day waiting period.
Yeah, if it's triggered, but we're just gonna assume it's triggered for the sake of our permitting schedule.
Yeah, it may be avoided. I mean, the town can waive it, but any building built before 1955, I believe, anybody can require a 90-day hold.
So now that we have that information, I don't think anything really changed. It's just good information that we needed to get into our schedule and know what to do when. It was very helpful. Another meeting that we had was with the PD itself. It was talking about all of the room by room electrical, mechanical needs, any special equipment needs within each room. It was a day-long session that we had down on site. The beginning of the meeting was dedicated to the EOC. And we did have Stuart there, thank you, and Russ from the town to give input. Since that meeting, we've continued with Russ and Stuart to further identify the furniture layout of the EOC, how things are going to be displayed, how things are going to be stored. All of the specific requirements of that space. But we're also continuing with the PD on all the other spaces in the building. Another big development that happened.
Brian?
Yes,
Can I ask you just about one space? I know that we had a potential room, an extra training room with possibly video training, you know, that I'm not getting, is that a definite or is that still a maybe? In terms of the project, in terms of the software and the equipment, just in terms of, I'm not sure where we are in next. I have questions about how long its useful life and how often it'll be used. So is that a definite in the plans at this point?
the room is being provided. The software and what they're purchasing for the room is still being decided by the police department.
Okay,
We're not including any of that AV within our scope.
okay,
They're going out on their own to seek out different systems, different costs. And they'll be coming back separately. We're just providing the space right now.
all right, thank you.
Amy, we're exploring the best fit out for that room. We want something that's future proof. We don't want to buy something that's gonna be obsolete in a couple of years. So we're exploring what the best equipment would be to put in that room to future proof it, and we're gonna build it out to allow for future developments, whatever that is, you know, for technology in that sort of room.
Okay, and also with an eye to what level of utilization it would have as well, I'm assuming, right? Because I know at some point we talked about, you know, maybe that makes more sense if they're doing a training center to put it all in one spot. I'm just-
Yeah, we're gonna try to make it a multi-use room and get the most effectiveness out of the room.
Great, thank you.
Another development in the last month is Joe's been very helpful finding data on old drawings that pertain to 174 South Avenue. In that effort, we have come across the 1980 renovation set for drawings, which is a wealth of information for us to show us what was actually done structurally to the building, what was new, what was added. But beyond that, we've also uncovered the original 1926 drawings when it was first built as a high school. They're fascinating. The building was constructed as a school, as everybody knows, but it does show how the grades were around the building. It does show all the windows. It does shows all the detailing, the elevations. And one of the aspects of the school when it was constructed was you came in the front door, you came across the corridor, and on the far side of the corridor was a series of concrete bleachers that went down to a back gym. And knowing all of this and seeing how it was constructed, what's bearing walls, it even has some information on depths of footings. So we had another meeting in-house with our structural engineer, and this has really opened our eyes to how the building was originally and how the building has been changed over time. And it's given us a lot of information structurally on what we need to do going forward to take the back section off and to provide a new structure. So it's changed our thought process a little bit on the structural solutions because we have this information. And if it's done anything, it's simplified a lot of the thought process of what we were going to do. And whenever we simplify something, I think that has a positive impact on budget. knowing what we know now, it's become a much, I'm not gonna say simple project, but it's a project that's easily doable and structurally capable of doing everything that we wanted to do. And it's just become an easier process. So I think ultimately it's going to have a financial benefit to the project with the information that we have. So thanks to Joe. The drawings, you'll have to see them someday, but they're really works of art, these 1926 drawings. So to think in 2026, when this project is going to be fully renovated, it's the 100-year anniversary of that building. So it's pretty significant what we're doing.
It sounds like the new artwork for the building.
It really is a piece of art. These drawings are a piece of art.
Brian, does that give you any insight also in terms of the hardening of the building, or from the hardening perspective, did you pretty much know what you knew and it's still the same?
Exterior wall is what we anticipated.
It is, okay.
It's fascinating that they built this whole building on about 12 drawings, where now we're going to have about 200 drawings, and it's probably still not going to be enough. And they're going to want more and more. But the whole thing was built with about 12 drawings. It shows the cold storage, the rooms, how they were designated for math and reading and history, and it's just fascinating. I love looking at them.
The current generation doesn't realize that back in the old days, we had to make the drawings first in pencil, and then we had to ink them.
Yeah, and these are the real blueprints that they still had in their possession, in a drawer.
Wow, what fun.
We have 2 more meetings that are scheduled in the next week. One is February 13th. And on February 13th, I'm prepared to go down and look at the Locust Street building. So we had a meeting with Slam and Joe. We talked about schedule, and we realized that the Locust Street building is the domino that starts the process. And Slam is working that into their schedule. I don't have to go too much into the scheduling of it, but Locust Street needs to be looked at and decided the scope of fit out that's required there. So that's a meeting that I'm going to be down in New Canaan on Monday morning to look at, to walk through, to verify some existing conditions, just to see that we have a base map of what's there now, and then working with the police department as to their thoughts, our thoughts, on where they can distribute themselves throughout the building, how they're going to service the public, how they're going to service patrol. So it's another kind of subset project that's going to get started on Monday. I still have to get my head around the scope of what needs to get done. Joe's been asking me for a fee to get started, but I'd rather understand the scope before I really determine a fee. Right now, it's a shot in the dark as to what a fee would be. But if it's an easy fit out, which we're hoping to reduce scope as much as possible, but we don't know until we really come up with that plan and it's endorsed by the police department to say, yes, this will work for them. So we're doing that kind of similar track to the 174 South Avenue project, but I just want to let you know that we are starting that second parallel track on Monday, because getting the PD out of the building has to happen before any renovation can happen at the building.
So Brian, just to be clear, so the costs associated with the temporary movement, that's all going to be encompassed in the all-in cost of this project, correct? That's part of our number, right?
I don't think so, Amy.
Well, I thought we had a number for moving people, and yeah, we did. Because
Okay.
I'm just trying, from
Well-
sitting here from the Board of Finance perspective, people are going to go, oh my gosh, what's going on? Just want to make sure, because really part of redoing the building is the fact you have to put people, that was definitely a number we had.
It was a soft cost number that we anticipated in the soft costs. It was a budget
Right,
allowance number, really not knowing what the solution was.
Right. But
The
it
key-
will,
The key point is
So-
it's going to have to be approved soon because that money is going to be spent now. It's not going to be spent later. So.
No, but
we
I'm
got
just
to-
saying, when people talk about the scope of the rebuild of the police department, that is part of the cost. And
Okay.
again, since I'm sitting in budget season with Board of Finance and people are going, oh my gosh, where does this? It goes without saying that this is a temporary space. So, if we can do it, obviously servicing needs, but realizing it's just a holding pattern, being very, very conscious of costs on this, because it's 18 months and then the money just, there's no long-term benefit on it.
It's
So,
gone.
yeah, so, because it's very, these are big numbers, these are big
So-
numbers.
So Amy, when
Yes.
we came in front of the Board of Finance, we said that we were going to need money for the rebuild and it was going to be in our project. But when we asked for funds up front, we had no money included, no estimate for the move.
And so
So
we don't
that's
have
why-
that money approved.
No,
right
I
now.
understand that, but we
Right.
did have a placeholder within the total scope of the project related to this. That was definitely, we always talked about that. Because when you did the
Right,
very
I don't,
analysis, it was like, you keep them there, you move, et cetera. That was part of the cost. So
right, no,
if
we
you have to come,
something I
if you have to come for money, you will, obviously.
Right.
And soon, I would say.
So just to clarify, the $27.5 million that is going through the budget process now has approximately 1.95 million for move costs.
Great.
A good chunk of that is the rental of the 39 locusts for the next 24 months, but yes.
All right, thanks,
So-
Joe. Thank you.
A next meeting that we have scheduled is next Wednesday, the 15th of February. We're meeting at the police department at 1 o'clock, from about 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock with Kama, who's our interior design consultant. I know, Penny, that you had interest in some of these meetings, but the one on next Wednesday is for Kama to see the existing building and discuss with the police department their first thoughts on finishes. This is not anything that's cast in stone. It's kind of a back and forth discussion as to the way they see finishes and appropriate finishes and spaces, whether that aligns with the police department's thought process on hard floor, carpet floor, where to put what. And we're also looking at interior finishes such as windows, window trims, what we want to do with certain wood trims, wainscot detailing. It's really an initial meeting to start the conversation. So there will be other meetings that are going to come from.
okay, yeah, because that one we have, we're doing our interviewing the CMs.
That's why I bring it up. I knew there was a conflict with something happening next Wednesday also for the project. But I
And-
wanted to get
and
them down
Brian-
there to introduce everybody to the police department and really get a first thought going on paper.
And considering part of the reason we're staying with the current building is the historical sensitivities within the town about it. I'm sure that'll be part of the interior and exterior.
It will be as far as the public spaces are, Amy,
Right.
because as the public walks in, my interest is historic preservation on the outside of the building, but I also want to really get rid of the modern look on the interior. When you walk into the lobby, I'd like to bring back some of the same historic preservation thought process in the public spaces.
Yeah, make it a bit more welcoming. Yes.
So that's the initial meeting on the 15th. As a long-term goal, we've set May 19th as a date that we can turn over drawings for the construction manager's purposes of bidding.
Good.
So we're targeting kind of mid-May in the big picture of things. And that would have to include the Locust Street solution also. So that's my update.
Oh, Brian, did you ever, I know we're sticking with the current floor for the workout area, but I just never understood. I want to confirm the height of the ceilings there. Is it 9 feet the lowest I know it's gonna be a solid ceiling, right? Not
Nine-
not an opened one.
Correct. 9 foot is the tallest ceiling height in the gym.
Okay, and what's the shortest ceiling height in the gym?
There will be some perimeter pipes and ducts that might get down to 8 feet, but we're gonna keep the majority of the ceilings up at 9.
Oh, okay, and have we figured out yet on that where we can put glass, that doesn't interfere structurally so that people can see in?
We had that conversation with the structural engineer. We can open up some walls, but he's saying we need to be limited in where we can do it because there's a bearing wall above that same corridor wall. And there are some point loads that come down onto that wall. So he's told me where I cannot open the wall and where I can open the wall. But he only wants me to open the wall in small increments of say 3'4", and then leave 2 feet, and then another 3'4", leave 2 feet. So we need to,
I was thinking of tall vertical panels in the range, 6 or 8 feet and 3 feet wide. So you have lots of light. They just wouldn't be wide.
yeah, we can't provide any wide openings. We can provide
Right.
a series of smaller openings in that wall.
That should be really good.
And what do you think? Do you think that'll work?
I do
Brian?
think it'll work, and because of the size of the space, we have to provide 2 doors into the gym, so there's 2 doors, we have 2 doors which will have some glass plus 3 vision panels that will have glass.
Okay, good, thank you.
And think about the competition that will create among the police officers as somebody's working out. You'll be shamed into working out more.
And
Well,
you
I
can-
can actually explain this to someone else if asked. So we were able to locate some of the original drawings. Thank you, Joe. And in reviewing those original drawings, we were able to modify how we are going to be building our addition on the back. Because now we have a better understanding of the support structures that were put in place at both the renovation in 1980 and when the building was built originally in 1926. And that allows us to streamline's the wrong word, but engineer based on certainty rather than on leaving a lot of contingencies where we had no idea what was down there. And so therefore, we're likely to get some kind of value engineering in. It's likely to be a similar process based on the more information we have as we build up the new addition. Is that close enough?
I think that's a good summary. I think that everything that we've learned has only reinforced that the floor plan that we proposed will work. There's really no change to the design because of everything that we've discovered with columns and beams and walls and footings. So that's the other takeaway is the plan is still the plan.
Okay.
Hey, Brian?
Yes.
When it's appropriate, I know you in the beginning had a lot of good ideas about what you thought the facade of the building would look like with new windows, new, more historically sort of appropriate windows. And when you can show those in a mock-up to us, I think that would be terrific.
Well, the way that we're drawing it is a system called Revit, which is a 3-dimensional modeling software. So we do have an entire 3D model of the outside of the building, which is kind of fascinating to look at. So maybe
Oh.
another time when we have some more time, we can share some of that model.
That'd be
That would be a terrific thing to bring before, when we get further along, especially when you're asking for the money, to the Board of Finance and Town Council. There's nothing like, one of those 3D walkthroughs, people to say, wow. I mean, it was very effective with the library when they did it.
Mhm.
It's called Reddit.
Revit, REVIT.
Good, thanks, Brian.
Stuart will know it by next week.
It's very important.
I'm just subscribing to it now.
Community college. Do you want to go on to the police department and what you guys want to update us on, and also the transition, things like that? potential schedule issues?
Yeah, so like Brian said, we met last week and did walk through, did the deep dive into each room. But we are planning on taking our staff to 39 Locust next week, our supervisory staff, to get their input as to see the layout of the building and kind of potential uses and how we can fit in there. Brian will be with us, so we'll get a better understanding of how that building will work. Joe, will we need permits for that? I'm assuming we'll need some permits.
We'll need,
So that-
we'll need permits, yeah.
Okay, so we'll have to just kind of put that on the calendar as well, but,
Mhm.
so next Monday, we'll have a better understanding of exactly how that building will work and where potentially everything will go, locker rooms, briefing rooms, report rooms, those sorts of day-to-day things. And so we're gonna get, all of our supervisors in there to get their input, so that's moving forward, so we're pleased with that.
And there's been no discussion about modifying traffic patterns in that area.
I don't think we need to, no, parking will obviously be a little bit tight, so we'll just have to be conscious of that and see how that works out. But I think there'll be enough parking, we just may have to spread out a little bit, actually the locust lot, leave it there a little bit, but it should work. Yeah, I don't think traffic will be an issue.
So you
And are
guys.
are you guys just dispensing with showers? Sorry, Stuart.
Yeah, go ahead.
Dispensing with showers, or you're gonna,
I think we're gonna have to, I don't think there's the ability to put that at 39 Locust, so. Potentially what we may have to discuss is just, maybe coming up with some sort of agreement with YMCA and have that as our workout facility and shower facility. I think that's just the easiest fit, so that might be part of, something that we do, rather than moving all of our gym equipment and trying to find floor space for that at 39 Locust. We might be better off putting that in storage and going down to the YMCA for the 2 years, so, more to follow on that though. But I defer to Brian, but I don't think there's the ability to put showers at 39 Locust.
No. We don't, we wouldn't have the money for that, and it's so much better cheaper. I think for everyone to go to the YMCA or something like that, so that'd be perfect.
Considering that, as Amy pointed out, any money we spend on locusts is going to get thrown away in 18 months.
Right.
And
Right.
further, the town has partnered with the YMCA on some very major projects going forward, a major heating system project. So it seems to me that this should be something that should not cost us anything. It should be a
Yeah,
partnership with the YMCA. They shouldn't be charging us for the police to use it in this period of time. So hopefully we can get there with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
John, one of the other small tidbits in the transition to Locust, of course, will be the compound vehicles and the trailers. And I just keep on reminding everybody, we need to find a space for those things.
Well, I drive by into the highway department every day from Main Street, and I keep seeing more and more private equipment stored in that dirt lot there. There's currently 4 landscape trailers, a couple of dump trucks, 2 sheds. So I really don't understand why we can't put town items there from the police department. So I'm gonna keep harping on that.
Which area are you referring to? The
After
parking?
the highway department from Main Street, the area from Main Street down the hill, prior to entering the gate into the highway department, there's a dirt parking lot that would accommodate storage of our vehicles. We could outfit it with a small fence to secure it somewhat. It doesn't need to be high security, but at least some level of preventing just people walking in and out. But currently that's used for a sort of construction storage equipment. Well, I don't know who goes there or what goes there.
It's John, that's the only area we have in town for a laydown area for the utility companies that are working in town. That's all we got.
Private dump trucks.
You know,
so
we can certainly look at it, but that's, we're gonna have to look at that.
Hey, Tiger and John, how about, I don't know how secure. I'm sorry.
Peace against roads, battle out, 988, winner takes all.
That's fine with me. I'm on
I don't
prednisone
know how
right now.
secure
I
this
could
has to be.
battle a moose right now, so I'm all good.
I don't know how secure this has to be, but being somebody who still commutes, Talmadge Hill is really open at this point. So I don't know if there's an ability to, I don't know how close it has to be for you all or how secure, but it just seems like there's some space there. I mean, the main lumberyard one's starting to fill up, except for Fridays, not full, but fuller. But, I mean, there's not to mention, there's a huge this probably wouldn't go over well, but all the churches have huge parking lots too that aren't used much.
Yeah, I
But-
don't want people there.
Yeah, but I don't know if can it be as far away as Town Hill up that way?
That might be a little, I don't know, we'll have to look at that, we'll discuss it, and see what we can put down there, but.
So Stuart started some work on this, and I know in the end, I think it's gonna be the 3 different categories and maybe 3 different even locations. But the one that you mentioned, is in a flood zone, so I know that we wouldn't want anything that's an emergency vehicle
It's not an emergency vehicle.
or anything that's leaking or potential of leaking.
Yeah,
Because I think what we would need wetlands approval to be there.
nothing is leaking, it's just storage of dry stuff.
Okay.
Not,
So that's what would be the cars that are crashed, I don't know when some of the ones, is there?
we're working on
a couple of them?
offloading, yeah, we're working on getting rid of as many as we can, problem is, of course,
Right,
prohibit us from that, but we're gonna work with them, certainly prior to our move, in November. We're gonna get rid of everything that we can, but there's also other items of store.
right, so it's I think I'm looking at, there's the trailers need to be treated one way. The vehicles that aren't like the crash and impounded need to be treated a different way, and then I guess that's more, and then the parade vehicle need to be treated like in a different way, maybe.
Yeah, okay.
So there might be, the solution might be, a Thomas Hill, some other site in town, and then, the crash ones are the most
Yeah,
troublesome.
yeah, but everything
So-
else.
So we're working on it.
Can we talk more about the timing of the move and things like that?
So, yeah, Joe had an update about when the school's moving out.
Yeah, so, the BOE project, over at 220 Elm, and working with Bill, it sounds like it's more realistic for an end of August, move date. So we just pushed the fit out for 39 Locust, which we expect to be about a 8 to 12 week fit out, depending on what we need to do over there. And we'll know more about that on Monday when we walk through with Brian, and then Brian has a chance, it's gonna take him about 8 weeks to design the temporary PD. So that makes us move the PD operations around Thanksgiving, which is fairly close to, it's a couple months after we originally, drafted in a schedule, but it doesn't change the end date. So we're still looking at fall of 2025. So that's where we are with the schedule.
But that is a change from what, the building committee knew beforehand. The move is gonna happen a little bit later. The Board of Ed is basically, not gonna be moving to this, they do more to their new space.
It basically moved from the beginning of summer, to the right before the school year.
I guess the Board of Ed was having trouble getting parts for the new sauna that was going into their headquarters building, so.
Yeah, it was.
I'm on the tease, Penny.
That's right. Absolutely. It's all the new wellness campaign.
So that all works nicely with our schedule though, so there's no issue with it, it's just different, so I'm highlighting it.
Yeah.
So Joe, just in terms of, just so I understand it, because the town works on a 6:30 budget schedule, and we're kind of looking at bonding and et cetera. So right now, it's starting work on the reconstruction of the building. Is that late fall and finishing up, like, what's timing? I mean, I'm just trying to think across the fiscal year cycle.
I can send you something in a scheduled format, so it's easier. But basically, we won't really start much at the PD until Thanksgiving.
Right. And is it 18 months, 16 months, 18 months?
We're in we've basically slotted out 2 years for the construction, but it's more in the, 16 to 18 month range. There might be, some moving, some commissioning and all, and just some contingency time built into that.
Sure. Okay.
So, but we're still publishing the 2 years.
Okay.
And as far as the money and as far as the finances go, I mean, we're gonna wanna get so right now we're covered for Humes and Slam's contract through the bid phase. So that gets us through that portion. And then we are working on getting the construction manager or the constructor, because we call him the constructor because there's been, some question about calling him the construction manager. So we have their initial phase through the bid covered in the last appropriation that we received. So we're basically covered until we get hard numbers, but we're assuming that we're gonna have to go to contract with actual sub-trade contractors for all the individual trades somewhere in the June range. So that'll hit perfectly with the budget cycle. So we're gonna stay on budget cycle for, June, July 1st for the balance.
Yeah, I mean, July 1's the day you want, right? That just, because it would be approved, the authorization gets
Right,
kept.
so we want to with the bond approval, the second, basically, we have the green light to go. So sometimes the money is a little bit available a tiny bit before July
Sure.
1st, right? But that's the latest.
Oh, yeah,
That's
no,
the-
definitely, because we generally will initially use cash and then reimburse ourselves with bonds. So it's just, you need the authorization beforehand, but the cash can, I think, be spent beforehand.
So can we talk the logistics of that process?
But
So
when do
we're-
we need to go to the Board of Finance?
But along this process, can we add in another factor? I sat with Tiger, gave us a great public works presentation, and there is a placeholder for the training range. And is a capital expense going forward, but I'm focusing not only on we're kind of in the dark on that. I mean, it's got carved out of this process and it's separate. So I think Tiger was a $5 million holding place, which, I was like, wow, it doubled. But I'm also thinking timing wise, the probability that anything breaks down on a training range would not be in the 23-24 budget. Is that fair to say? It just because we got a lot of capital things coming up, and we try to figure out how to spread it across various fiscal years and stuff like that. Is that just for those of us in the dark on that? Can a little light, because it's going to be one of the big capital items that will be discussed.
Yeah, I mean, we could be spending money in the next fiscal year on it if it goes through. The chances of it going through is that quickly is questionable, but I wouldn't want to not have funding for potential projects. I can't really speak to that. It's above my pay grade.
Yeah,
you
where
could-
does that sit, that whole discussion of that part of it? I mean, it's for some reason it's not sitting with us. I don't know why, but I feel like I'm in the dark on that, and I don't know, or is it? Yeah, I know we don't even know what they're doing. Sites, we don't know much. Can somebody fill me in on that? And maybe I've missed something in these discussions. I don't know.
Well, Joe, it sounds like you may need some money like we have now for Brian in 23, 24, but maybe not construction.
Well, depends how quickly this can go through. I can't really speak to pushing it off.
Who is owning this process? Where does it sit for the, I'm just,
I think the selectman's office is looking at different different venues and possibilities. My understanding, and I'm certainly not part of the process, but I think they're still looking at locations in town. I think they're still looking at opportunities to partner. And I think they're looking for ways to make partnering more viable for lots of departments. Now, there's one.
So it sounds to me, if I'm in a meeting on this and people ask about it, then I direct the question to Kevin. Right? Because it's not within us. I mean, which is odd. No offense. It's odd. This is the police building committee, which I thought was to make sure the police got all they needed for their capital needs. But for some reason, this is this, I don't get it. But, and so I don't have any comfort with these throwing out these numbers. And, you know, where I sit in the Board of Finance, people are going, these are big numbers. What do we know to substantiate it? And what is the timing of it? And that's kind of, I feel like we have the bad guy job. Everyone puts stuff out and like, oh yeah, this is great. And then we have to say, well, can we afford it? So I feel like it's a difficult thing for us to say, yeah, let's put it in the budget with no information.
Fair enough.
That's very fair, and I don't think there really is any information right now. I think the selectmen's office has negotiated lots of different alternatives and different paths. But I don't think there's anything close to call it even a favorite going forward. It's still a lot of fact finding, a lot of discussion.
Right. So from my perspective, we could, I would, and Chief and Joe, and this is not that I'm anti this project, but from our perspective, we say, okay, it is really in the discussion stages right now. And so if someone needed money to go forward design, we can always do a special appropriation for it. The flip side is I know people don't want to, you know, kind of have this off the bat burner and forget about it. So there's kind of a balance in that, but it's really hard to say, let's put money out there for something when we have, you know, when we have to look at the totality, a lot of big projects coming down if we don't have any info on it. So, I mean, there's that balance, you know, it's like, we want to make sure that in this redoing the police department, all, you know, committed to provide all the training that they needed and the training facilities. But since it's not within us, we don't have a roadmap, but I will, you know, in the meeting, I'll have to direct it to Kevin, because it seems like he's decided that he's the lead on this one.
So Amy, we are looking at sort of getting a rough roadmap together to present and getting an idea of, one, where this facility could go, two, what it would look like as far as footprint, parking, that sort of thing, and where it would fit geographically on a plot of land that the town owns, and then also what the usage would look like for us internally in New Canaan, but also for other agencies, and then what that would do to cost sharing. So those numbers are very preliminary right now, and we're kind of fleshing those out a little bit, but I can give you some insight into that, some talking points if you'd like, and we can discuss that further. But it's very preliminary right now because we don't have a plot of land. Once we have a plot of land and we know where it's going to go or could potentially go, I think things will progress much more rapidly.
Right, but realistically, I mean, it would seem to be Herculean task to say that in between July 1st of 2023 and June 30th of 2024, that this project breaks ground. I mean, that's like 15 months. That's pretty quick, right? You know, when you haven't identified co-use, that's what I'm saying. But which doesn't mean it doesn't make sense. You know, perhaps putting something in the budget that, like we did for the police department rebuild, like, you know, what did we get initially, a $500,000 or something like that to, you know, do the preliminary work. I'm just trying to think, you know, to make sure it's
that once we have a location for it, this structure is pretty simple comparatively to the police department. It's a single use, it's a pretty much a bare bones structure. And we basically put in the equipment that we need and it's done. So it could happen quite rapidly once we identify the location and have some architectural drawings and coordinate with the people that put in the equipment. So it's not a very complicated building, so it could happen rapidly. So we should be prepared to move on it and act on it quickly if it does, in fact, if we do find a location for it.
But remember, it's not whether we can find a location for it. Once, if it is town-owned property, the people have to decide that, and that's a very long,
Yep.
long process. Appropriately, if the people own the land, the people get to decide what goes on it, and that process takes, I would also say appropriately, a long time.
Yeah.
So I think the, Amy's comment is, sure, is probably accurate. I'd like to get back to the actual logistics of our current project again. And just sort of, in my own mind, figuring out when this committee is going in front of the Board of Finance. Are we then going to the Board of, we have to go to the Town Council again, or will it just be a Board of Finance situation? I don't know, we'll speak wherever we are told to speak, I guess. But if anyone has some more insights on that, I appreciate it.
So at this particular moment, it's going through the regular, it's already, the budget has passed the selectmen.
Yeah.
And.
No,
it's
because
going-
they already got it.
It's already,
Tiger.
so it's already gone through the selectmen and it's on to the next step. It's gonna go through the committees. I don't know that we've discussed whether there's a special presentation on the police building again. We haven't changed it since you presented last time. We haven't changed the cost. We haven't changed the footprint. We haven't changed the program at all. So if the town bodies want a presentation from this committee, obviously you would give them. That hasn't been requested in that I've seen.
Okay, good.
I think if we're still okay with the, the line item for the cost, hopefully obviously coming in below that. Budget process is super busy. But I would say it would be really good once, Brian has this fancy schmancy 3D to give an update, because, people feel good about that.
That's a very good point, Amy. The next presentation, if you like that, it's going to be a lot to keep the mind up going. I think this project has excellent momentum. I think it's, everyone is very excited. I was 100% committed to this new police building, and we should all feel pretty good where we are.
So just to make sure I understand it, we're putting in 27.5 million into the current budget that's going through the town. If that goes through all the town bodies and passes, we'll give some updates to the Board of Finance just to explain what we're doing. But as of July 1, we as a building committee could take what contracts going into that 27.5 million to the Board of Selectmen for approval without going through an additional approval process. Is that correct?
Yeah, and we'll have the,
That's correct, actually. Yeah, Penny, that's right. The money should be around by June 1, hopefully. If it's bonded, we should have it by about June 1.
Right, but we won't have to go, I was just slightly different than the Board of Finance process.
Board of Ed,
Board of Ed process. All right, that's good, simpler.
yeah,
And
and look,
then I think we should do appropriate updates so that Board of Finance and Town Council understand exactly what it is, how we're progressing.
yeah, I mean, certainly when we get the full GMAX, contract, people are gonna want to know how it bid out and what the actual costs are, right? I mean, you're gonna get the authorization for a number that is we're hoping the higher number, right? So it just like, with the library and with everybody else, they want to know exactly where the contract came in, right? And,
Okay.
they can tell us about it.
So the other question I had, just to, as a checkpoint, just for as we're going through, are Brian, at some point, are we going to recost this when your plans are further, re-estimate this when your plans are further along at the,
The plan is, once the construction manager is on board, we're gonna give an updated set for them to do an updated cost estimate.
okay, and that would be just the construction manager doing it? Would we have a second check with somebody else, or is that something for us to decide?
That's something for you to decide.
Okay,
We have SLAM, we have one estimate from them as well. So the thought would be that SLAM would estimate it and the construction manager would estimate it, and then we'd reconcile the two together and put forward a one cohesive budget.
The construction manager will go into much more detail than anybody else, more than Gene can get into. So that will probably be our best estimate.
sometimes they build in allowances that you have to think about.
Well, we need to participate with them.
Right,
and
yeah, we just,
develop
right,
it out.
absolutely, no, that, okay. Okay,
And right now, we're scheduled for the 15th to interview our construction manager.
When would you like an update? And it's, we have, you know, obviously Amy and Michael Morrow kind of representing the town bodies. When would you like a update from the committee? You want to look at basically the.
Let me get-
update?
Let me get back to you on that. We have a meeting tonight, we're kind of going through budget and I can ask that question and get back to you. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
As far, excuse me, as far as the town council is concerned, probably sooner rather than later. I know that this cost is definitely opening eyes pretty wide on the town council. So I think, Penny's presentation not too long ago, I thought was very well received. I mean, it was excellent. I know a lot of people appreciated it, but I think that needs to happen sooner rather than later. I mean, I speak with the town council on and give them updates, but more formal presentations, I think, would go a long way as this number is really, I'd say, concerning, but it's a large number. So I think Steve Carl on, scheduling a time for a presentation.
Okay.
All right, guess we're on to general business. Anything else? Not that I'm aware
No,
of.
yeah, we covered it. Well, actually, the contractors interviews are February 15th. It's basically an all-day interview process with the selection committee. And then we are hoping to be able to bring the construction managers forward to the building committee for a vote. So I'm assuming we'll go into executive session, discuss it, and hopefully have a vote on the the 23rd, I believe, is the next regularly scheduled meeting. So hopefully we'll have a vote, and that will be similar to what we did with SLAM, which will be, we have I believe $100,000 for the pre-construction services for the CM in the current budget that we're working from. So I think if we would release them on everything up to through the pre-construction phase. So it'll be a vote next time.
Hey, Bill or Brian, can you give us, is there any update on the survey, the site survey for the property?
So we gave them an updated survey for everything with the exception of the lower level. So the lower level is being surveyed this week. And then they'll get an actual plan probably the following week. But mostly that pinch point in the corner that you're concerned about, I think all the data is available on that now, right, Brian?
Yes, and we do have site plans that show turning radiuses around that back canopy, if that's the point that you're interested in. So we could share that also.
And are you adjusting the parking configuration out there as a result or no?
Yes, we have.
Okay, yeah, I'd love to see the update on that if you have it.
And are the number of parking spaces been reduced to accommodate it or?
They have. We're still showing parallel parking. It was brought up in the meeting that we had with town staff, town planner. We were showing a 15-foot wide egress aisle going up past the building. They were wondering if we could get it any wider than 15 feet. So we've looked at that a little closer, and because of the parking configuration at the apartments, that 15 feet is as wide as we can go. And it still provides the parallel parking. So if you wanted to go anything wider than 15 feet, then you're gonna lose even more parking. I think
The rigs are 10 feet wide, so just, that gives you 2.5 feet clearance on each side.
yes, and that's what the existing drive is going up there also.
That's tight, but yeah.
And Brian, what is the parking space count at this point with your current updated configuration?
I'd have to get the drawings out, Stuart. I'd have to check. I can get back to you on that.
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah, if we could get if you could resend the plans showing the new configuration, we'd love to see them. Thank you.
I think, Joe, I think you have those, Joe, as part of the DD submission.
Yeah, the DD submission is here, in case anyone wants to look through it, it's here, it's available. And I can email you out a specific sheet.
Thank you.
So just so you can kind of physically see, the DD drawings are out. And in the specifications, and also we received 5 qualification packages from the construction managers. They're all available. I sent some of them. I sent them out to the selection committee digitally, but there's hard copies if anyone wants to peruse through them.
So, John, the concern, of course, would be depending on how few spaces you end up with, whether in the lower parking lot, not every vehicle is used every day, whether we wouldn't then start to plan on stacking vehicles or something. I mean, you certainly want to be sure to keep the vehicles on site if you possibly can.
Correct, yep.
All right, so our subgroup meeting on the 15th, interview our construction managers. Our next scheduled meeting is February 23rd. Where we'll probably be voting on the construction manager.
Yes.
And that's all I have for now. Anything else before we adjourn?
No, I'll get back to people if we want to get something on Board of Finance for an update. I'll check with people tonight and get back.
Thank
I'm
you.
waiting for your pretty pictures, Brian. That's what I want to see.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.